Welcome back to the show, everybody. The word of the day today is problems. We have quite a few small problems to work through. No worries, I think we can handle them all. So I've taken everything back apart because we need to finalize all the radiator core hardware today. A few other minor details to address as well, but we will start with thermostat housing. The first problem of the day, we've got a lot of pitting going on the gasket flange, to the point where a gasket is not going to readily want to seal. And that's not a huge issue. We can take this surface down. The bigger issue though is this recessed step in here. That's where the thermostat flange has to live. And I've already measured it. We're about 50 thousandths lower in here than we are up at the top. The easiest way to take the top surface down is probably going to be lapping it on an already flat surface, because I don't have a good way to throw this in the milling machine to take that part down. But the more of this we take down, the more of this inside portion we'll have to take down to match it, so we retain an adequate step to keep that thermostat flange basically flush with the top. So first things first, let's see how many of these pits we can work out of here. And with this cast iron, plus the fact that I want to take a lot of material off in a short amount of time, I start with a very rough grit sandpaper. So that takes a few minutes. It's not exactly a fast process, but cast iron's pretty soft, so it comes down fairly quickly. And we've got a good gasket surface that will seal once again. So let's see how far we need to take the recessed area down to match it. Get our after measurement here. Yep, okay. We know what we have to do. So the next problem of the day, how do we mill just inside that recess and nothing else? Well, I have a kind of milling machine and an end mill bit and this little turntable. See how that's going to work? Okay. So I made a couple of spacer adapters yesterday. They will fit the thermostat housing. They will both anchor to the turntable like that, and thermostat housing will bolt on top of them like that. Secure all that down, position it beneath the end mill, get my depth established, and then crank that around in a circle. Should work. Let's check the setup. Zero out, lock it down. I'd say within 3 thousandths all the way around. Plenty good for what we have to do here. And that turned out pretty well, I think. We didn't get all the pits out of the recessed area, but we also didn't have to, because that's not a sealing surface. That's just what holds the thermostat. So we'll do a quick check, place it in, and we don't want to have that thermostat standing up above the flange. Nope, it's just even with it, and that's a good thing, because the gasket will actually extend onto the flange a little bit and put some clamp load on that thermostat, keep it from rattling around. So now that we're this far, you're about to see why we started with this piece today. It's a perfect day for gliptalling outside. Mid-March, this should be our snowiest month, and we're 60 degrees Fahrenheit and it's just beautiful. So we'll make the best of it. We'll keep all the paint fumes outside. Going to coat the interior surface that is going to come into contact with the coolant, just like we did for the radiator tanks. So we'll get this all coated first and let it set up and dry, so that by the end of the episode we'll be ready to bolt this onto the top tank. Okay everybody, on to the next problem. We've got the horribly rusted bottom tank connection for the lower radiator hose. And this one was in such bad shape, as you can see, we just collapsed it and pulled it out. There was nothing here to save. So just our luck, the prior model ZB tractors had this connection as a thread-in unit into the tank, and the subsequent production 445 tractors had this piece as a thread-in fit to the tank. The prototype here is a straight press fit sleeve, because at this point, are we even surprised? So that means we get to make a new one. Okay, now although the original sleeve was soldered in, I'm going to try an anaerobic sealer. I've got it on the bore and on the sleeve too. They didn't have this stuff back in the day. We'll leak test this after we get it driven in and this stuff sets up, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. No big deal. There we are, we hit the step. Okay, who's ready for yet another problem? I knew you were. You just love seeing me have to overcome problem after problem after problem on that whole giant stack of problems over there. That's all right. So we've got these metal straps, and they are reinforcements for the header plates on the radiator core. These are the ones for the bottom tank. These are the ones for the top tank. And while the top tank straps would probably be savable, they're not great, but I've seen a lot worse. The bottom tank straps are a lot worse, okay? And of course, this is the one where we battled most of the rusted and broken bolts. They're quite deteriorated, and they're not straight anymore. There's just too much pitting, too much material gone. They're too far out of shape. It's easier just to start over and go all brand new. So that's how we do that. Fortunately, the old straps are in good enough condition to use as patterns. Should work. I will scribe both of the 45-degree lines on each end, and then use a transfer punch to mark the centers of all the holes. Okay, we've got all of the longer core straps done, and next up is going to be the shorter ones, and we're going to do these a little bit different because we're going to need to get the holes drilled in them before we cut the ends, because the cut ends go through the holes. So otherwise, pretty much the same premise, but I think y'all can hear some noise out here. Go see what Senior's been up to. He's been helping the double team lately on the X231 project, so what you got going on?
Well, we're making bushings for our boring bar.
For that front bolster repair, the braze weld, right? Yep.
So, yeah, I'm finally getting her tuned in. I had to put a steady rest on her. I was getting too much vibration, but yeah, we're getting a pretty good finish on her now. I think I can live with that.
These are going to be the guides for the boring bar as we go and line bore out that repaired end.
And then I gotta do the internal for this runs bushing.
To fit the bushing, and then the bar runs on the bushing.
Yep. So
all right.
That's what we're in the process of doing.
Very good. It really helps having an extra set of hands on the project, because he's out here working on this stuff while I'm in there working on the radiator stuff, and we're just trying to get as far as we can get before summer hits, and we don't have time for shop work anymore. So I'll leave you to it. Don't let me hold you back. I went back and forth a bit on exactly how I wanted to do these short pieces. So I decided to get them all center punched and scribed out on the new steel first. And then we'll do all the drilling before we cut any of them off. And then finally, each one will be cut to length and then trimmed. So this method is going to create a little bit more waste, but I think for the drilling portion and everything else, it's going to be a lot quicker. It's going to be worth wasting a few little bits and ends of steel if I can just put one bit in, do all of the first slice pilot holes, change to the main bit, do all those, and then we'll chop them all apart as needed. So you're going to pay the piper one way or the other. You're just deciding which end of the bargain you want to do the paying on. So let's see if you can see those. Yep, there they are. All my marks, my scribes, all 4 end pieces. Okay, everybody, old meets new. That is a fair sight better than what we had to work with. Really like how all that turned out. Now, for the next problem, I need 40 bolts to hold all these on the tanks. And they need to be these 5/16 by 18 Rockford head bolts. You see where I shine that one up just a little bit? You can see the Rockford in the head with the grade 5 markings. Well, all we had left from taking this apart is right here. And most of them ended up like that. So, well, you'll never guess what I ended up finding. We're talking eBay, not just regular eBay, the dark, cobwebbed, rummage sale area recesses of eBay, where no one has been for years and years, and all of a sudden this guy from Minnesota comes along and is like, oh man, this stuff is amazing. Rockford head bolts, 5/16 by 18. Oh, and we found lots of them. There's more. More still. Now we work into some 3/8. Most people get their fix off of little bags like this with something very different, and not me. Woo-hoo! We can't have a bad day from this point on. So, bought them, examined them. Look at that beautiful Rockford lettering in there. That is the genuine article. I ran across a whole slug of these and I'm like, how many you got? I'll buy them all. I want them all. So not only do we have enough for this radiator, I've got enough for several others. Oh yeah, we're gonna store these things away. Probably put them in a safe. So this is where we put our work to the ultimate test. After all the thread repair we did, after all the transferring of the punch marks, the drilling of holes, the placement of all details, we see if we can start all the bolts and make everything fit. Check to see that our corner joint's clear. Yep, looking good. Just about have a home run on the top tank here. Last bolt, it's looking good. Liking it. So bottom tank put to the test, and this is the one where we had to replace a lot of threads. So anything's possible. Some of these I kind of had to take an educated guess at to determine original location. One could always oversize the holes a bit, but you'd rather not have to. Because if you have any trouble with the fitment here, it's also going to correlate to trouble with the fitment of the radiator core itself. So we don't want that. Last piece. It looks, oh, look at that. Hang on, it looks good so far. I just realized something. Day just keeps getting better. Okay, here's our nightmare scenario. Boom, look at that. And there was only supposed to be 40 bolts in that bag. There was 42. I've got 2 left over. And that brings us right back around to where we started today with the thermostat housing. That paint is dry enough to assemble, and it immediately pulls us out of our good mood from the extra bolts because we realize this brings with it a new set of problems. That is definitely the theme of the episode today. So the bolts that hold it to the top tank were too badly rusted for me to want to use again. They were good Rockford bolts too, but that's okay. eBay bails us out once again. Look at those Rockford bolt heads. Yep, all right, so we're good to go there. Brand new bolts. We've got a new gasket ready and a new thermostat, which brings with it yet another problem. I learned the hard way on the prototype crawler X253 that the way Minneapolis Moline likes to locate their thermostats so far away from the engine, if you don't drill a healthy bypass hole in the flange, you can have some overheating problems because the coolant gets really warm down at the cylinder heads and it has to go all the way up that top hose and then get to the back of the thermostat before it opens it, and then you can get some cooling action, and by then your engine is a lot hotter than it is up here at the thermostat. So an 1/8 of an inch hole in the flange will do. We'll take care of that right now. Perfect. That's all you need. I also like to position that bypass hole toward the top because then it also doubles as an air bleed vent for when you're filling the cooling system. And having that 1/8 of an inch hole for a bypass gives you just enough coolant circulation that it keeps the engine from wanting to overheat before the thermostat opens for the first time. You don't need a lot of volume, but that is just enough. So we can bolt this up, call it a day. That is if we don't find any more problems. Didn't I say that by the time I was through, there wouldn't be a bolt here that wasn't a Rockford? I think we've accomplished that goal. The thermostat looks good down in there. It's being held nice and tight, just how I wanted it. So I believe we've done everything that we can do here to prep all these pieces for the radiator core repair or rebuild. And that brings us to the final problem of the day. A lot of people in the comment section have asked, with the milling that I did to both of the tank gasket surfaces, does that not adversely affect the fit of the radiator core? Yes, and anytime you mill material off of components, it will change the stack up height. That is just to be expected. Personally, that problem has not worried me because that was one that I chose for myself, okay? I knew that we were gonna have to do some serious rehab work in there and it was likely going to cause other dominoes to fall. But you all remember how poor those gasket surfaces were. You look at the top header plate here, that's still metal from the top tank stuck to there. I've never seen a cooling system so badly rusted, but I believe this suffered from just hard water having been run in it, no antifreeze, no corrosion protection. It led a pretty hard life. So one thing I am going to do before we take this anywhere, I'm going to flatten these flanges. I want to get a good height measurement here, and I will mock all of the pieces up and build the box here again, get my new height measurement there, and we'll see how far off we are. I believe I can make up the difference of the material that I removed by just putting like a 1/8 inch thick cork rubber gasket on each header plate. These originally had a pretty thin paper gasket, I'd say a 1/16 of an inch or so thick. So a thicker cork rubber gasket, I believe, should seal just fine and should take up all the clearance. If that does not work, however, it wouldn't be that hard to just further hog the bolt holes on each end of the grill panels, run those up, fill them in and bring them up a little bit at the bottom, and then just do a slight trim on each far edge, and you've basically tightened up all of your clearance, and you should be able to mount that core once again. Either way, we'll get something figured out, and being that we have returned all those components to a condition in which they can actually be worked with again, it's not going to be that hard if we have to cross that bridge eventually. So thank you for watching, everyone. Tractor restoration is basically just a series of overcoming problems. This tractor, however, is problems that have been put on steroids. That's why I do get burned out on it after a while, because every day is an uphill battle, as you well know. So I hope to see you all back again. We're going to throw this episode together, and I'm excited to roll ahead with the radiator core repair. It'll be really nice if we can get that ticked off the list, and it's one less worry on my mind. So when there is news to report, you'll be hearing from me again. Thank you, everybody.